I don't know who might even that we're going to go live. So welcome, James. I'm my pot matcha latte, a little green in there, and you with your coffee.
Standard coffee.
Mm.
Yeah, so there's me. Right. Where do we start?
Start by saying we were both the same wavelength, thinking of each other. When I received the message not long after I was thinking of reaching out to James, he says, "How about we go live on a collaboration?" I said, "You must have read my mind. The waves, the frequencies. We are sending each other our messages without needing we need the technology to confirm it." Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. It struck me something so obvious and so easily missed. It sort of stemmed really from something Manly P. Hall says. There's a series of 5 lectures on Atlantis, and I think everybody knows the sort of the Plato's description of Atlantis as being a series of circles that radiate outward, and you've got water between them. So I thought, imagine you're a nomadic tribe. So you've got basically teepees. So I would guess that you would put the chief in, or the chief of that tribe in the middle. You'd have a circle of maybe whoever your medicine man or medicine woman. You'll have your the one that's trained to speak the verbal history of that tribe. All these sort of appointed positions will be on the next sort of ring. Then you might have the sort of tribe in general around that, and then there's Julia, and then outside of that you may have your warriors for sort of defense, protection. So between those rings you would have walkways. So you take the water out and now you're on foot. And I thought, basically, in a human form as a tribe, you've got your town hall, you've got your library, you've got your courts, you've got your hospital, everything all as a living tribe. But then that pattern also replicates to pretty much the development of every settlement, town, city. They all follow this same pattern. So the sort of Atlantis pattern has never gone away. It's still here. Everywhere you look, you'll have this same pattern. And I thought, I like to look for common denominators in things. And there's a few things that have really bugged me. Like, why is it Irish and Hebrew have 452 common words? And this is all sort of now come together. It's like, as Manly P. Hall describes Atlantis, imagine the height of the power of the British Empire if the British Isles had sunk. So you're now left with Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and India as like the biggest centres. So over a short period of time, if they didn't have communication with each other, they would start developing in slightly different ways. And you can see the pattern with this in American English and English English. So whereas you would say sidewalk, we would say pavement. A barge board is a skirting board, and so on. So you've got this sort of cut off with a language where it then takes a slightly different route. In the short space of time, it hasn't changed enough so we can't sort of understand each other, but there are certain words that are slightly different but mean the same thing, like yard and is another example. So I thought, this has got me thinking. And it is one of those things, you put out a wish or you seek and ye shall find, and the things just come. So I can basically link Rudolf Steiner, Manly P. Hall, Archaics, Old World Florida, 𝐔𝐒𝐬𝐬𝐲's channel, which was thanks to someone who commented on a video, alerted me to that channel. And there's an interesting book called Irish Wisdom in the Bible and the Pyramids. It's an audio book. It's about 7 hours long. It's by Conor McDarry in 1923, and it cites references to the Encyclopedia Britannica 9th edition and many other books, and what that puts together. Wow. And then it leads on as well to a thing called indentured servitude. So basically, if you want to go over to the United States, you pay your fare by doing a set period of time with a master, you're their servant. But if you run away, you get a week added or a month added, and for various other crimes, you get time added. So you end up as a lifetime indentured servant. So you're basically a slave. So this is how they've sort of masked things in history. And the picture of slavery is something very different from what we've been told. So the common denominator that I thought I'd not put together was the Mayans, Aztec, Egypt. They share a commonality in sun worship. So what I'm proposing is here that you need something that links all this together. So if the equivalent of the British Isles, the hub, the center of a civilization collapses, and you know it's going to get a direct hit, but you can salvage or move things. And this is even reflected today when you have earthquakes and things, against all odds, they pull somebody out the rubble alive 3 days later, and you think, how have they survived that? But they're always survivors. So the people are the Phoenicians. It comes from a Gaelic word. It should be spelt with an F. And then it turns that all the biblical names are all of Gaelic origin. Hebrew just means priest class of Gaelic, because there were some other connections I saw with this, Galilee and Gaelic. You've got Hibernia, there's a Hibernian football team near Edinburgh. It's the old name for Ireland. You've got Iberia, which is the old name for Spain. I've been looking at this the wrong way. Now, tar means west. So a Tartar is a West-Westerner, as Jason and Archaic shows. So the Tartars, well, there's another common connection. The east coast of the United States, you have the Micmac tribe. Mic is Irish, Mac is Scottish. They wear tartan. The Seminoles wore tartan. So you've got tartar in the pattern, and of course associated with Scotland and Ireland. It's like, well, there's the spiritual, there's the air, hence Éire, Ireland, the lush green, the centre where the wealthy sent their children to be educated. It's the remnants of Atlantis. So what I'm suggesting is Gaelic is the language that was spoken in Atlantis and still exists today, basically.
Wow.
It's a lot, I know.
But when you started responding via email and you bringing that up, and it was ironic because here I was downtown with my sister, and the city of Dunedin is of Scottish root, and I have roots as well, which is kind of ironic because my sister and I have done the research where they talk about all the slavery, but they don't talk about the Irish slaves, which were a huge, when the Brits took over Ireland, gave all their land away to their officers. They were taking their potato farms, selling it off to everybody, making them work for their own freedom, and not even freedom, but their livelihood. And I was like, wow, they want divided. That's the bottom line there. so that they don't see that everybody's been at some point enslaved and tortured and under circumstances less than ideal, of course. And when you started saying, I was like, so funny is the world is upside down, inside out right now, right? So what you're saying to me and how I interpret it visually as well, when you look at the maps, say square, right? Look at the maps, they try to make it sound like Rome's the one who went around all the world and populated, when maybe it was the other way around. It wasn't from the bottom up, it was top down. Right? Like we're talking about Ireland. Because I listened to Code Your Reality, Logan, he mentions how his theory is that all the religions, I forgot if he says that goes back to Christianity, goes back to the Jewish, but what you and I are discussing and have been over the texts and the messages is that essentially it's all going back to Ireland, the Gaelic, and it makes sense when you think about the leprechauns and all the little people and the giants. Like I think of a lot of old childhood stories that came out of the Irish. Like
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. So, and yeah, I always think of green, all the beautiful green up there.
Well, I can give you a modern day film interpretation that shows exactly how things would go, and it's a clip on you can find on YouTube. It's called "The Tale of Captain Walker."
Hmm.
It's from Max 3, where he's sort of come across this sort of oasis in the desert, and there's these children, and there's I think it's a Boeing 747. They think from the drawing they've done from the memories that this is Captain Walker come back because he's got this like greyish or white bit of hair, like the same as this cave painting. So they put the pilot's hat on him,
Hmm.
and then the eldest girl, because she's the one that finds him, she is given the position of telling their story, and what they tell is the truth. But they're telling a truth from a perspective of not knowing anything about technology because the plane runs out of fuel. But the way they describe it, the girl says, some say it was a gang called Turbulence, some say the wind just stopped. So they're now expecting this Captain Walker to fly like the wind, Captain Walker, and they're all lining up on the top of this aircraft. They've got no understanding of technology. They've got those children's um, those little things you can put up when you view little negatives with a light behind it. So they're using a flame to show the pictures, and
Mm.
they have everything as best they can, but without that knowledge of the technology. So you can see just from that film clip how civilization, after a destruction, when you've got no memory of that technology, you try and explain it in the language that you're left with. It's incredible. It's like, wow, this is what has happened to us. So when you get into Ireland, and the centre was Tara, hence Tartar, because it's the west part of Europe. It's sort of like the centre between the Gulf of Mexico, the Fertile Crescent. You can see the way it's gone out along that sort of equator line. It's gone into India, hence Krishna and Christ, because it's Aisa. And the temple of Aisa is the Great Pyramid of Giza, because it's told to us about as being Irish monks. You've got several, as Jason shows you, you've got several floods and devastation. So what I'd also suggest is the biggest structures that you find in South America, and again, sun worship, they're the oldest structures. They've survived the various cataclysms. And then as you've come down to more modern times, the function of the Great Pyramid of Giza is now encapsulated in what we called an old world church with a tower. Because I feel if you've come from a world where all your waters were above, that water has now come crashing down. It's now in contact with soil, with dirt, with stone. It needs purifying. And then you also need, it needs energizing again. So it's flowing water. So all these churches are always near water. And that was also, I feel, the function, as Jason suggests, of the Great Pyramid of Giza. But on the outside of those, you have temples. So whether an initiate actually went into that Great Pyramid and it was flowing water, or whether it was just symbolic and done from the temples, I don't know. But there's also the other thing that, going back to, how can I forget his name? Atlantis, Plato.
Mm.
I've lost my train of thought. It'll come back in a minute. This is the trouble, it's so vast. Yes, I know what it was. It talks about the 5 different color races at Atlantis. Now, if you look at what is been purposely called, not the silly story of Columbus thought he'd got to India, that is deliberate. And by breaking down Indian, it's in, it's di, and it's an, which is a variation on. So it's basically from a perspective of those that want to, would see you as an enemy, it's killing the light inside, disconnect from the spirit. If you look at not the Hollywood version of what a Native American Indian is, they are all shades from the darkest to the lightest. We are all connected. So the Moors, because they moored ships wherever they went, they're another branch. They're not disconnected, and they weren't disconnected from Ireland. The Irish had been navigating across to the Americas for at least 900 years before Columbus, and I would suggest even further back. And they're taking the spiritual, true religion back wherever they went. Because you now have a system where you've got its polar opposite, the Church of Rome. The Roman Empire never collapsed, it just morphed. They actually have pulled the biggest stunt ever. Those that think they're Christian, who are spreading Christianity, are actually destroying it and have nearly succeeded. And Rome takes its name. I'm going to have to look at the notes. It comes from ro, which means before, and orm, which means body, earth, or grave. So it sort of implies sort of an eternal spring, basically. It's on the Tiber, which it takes its name from a river in Ireland, another Gaelic word, Tubber. It's the common denominator. They are the sea people. They are the ones that spread this art and literature and had the remnants of it. That was the sort of like the great library. This is why of all the countries of Europe, the Irish have been persecuted time after time after time. That is why there has been an English Pope. That was to get Henry II on side to invade Ireland. There was no war between Ireland and England. They've even gone as far as separating it into Irish, Scots, and Picts. They're all the same people. It's just mind-blowing.
Wow.
And the etymology this up, it ties everything all together. It's like, this is incredible. And I would also suggest what is also being reflected is something that humans do. If you're upset and you've got tears in your eyes, you don't see so well. So you need to wipe tears away from your eye. Now think of the firmament as being like the lens of an eye. If you are the creator, you may well be upset that you've had to reset everything and basically start with where we start with Genesis again. So you wipe the tear away from your eye with the vapor canopy gone, so you can have a good look at what humanity is doing. Because you don't want to veil in the way, you want to see clearly what is humanity doing with my creation, basically. Although the creator is within all of us anyway. We do have the power to co-create. I've proven that to myself. I don't need to prove it to anyone else. It's just try it for yourself. And it is all in the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Even with this recycled quantitatively but not qualitatively pure water, as uh, oh, Ken Wheeler says, flowing water, I get some of the best downloads when I'm in the shower because I've got running water. So although it's gone through all their chemical process, it is not stopping that spirit, because it's like, now it all makes sense, as it were. Um, so we've got a remnant of that with a baptism in a church. And it takes place in a font. Well, a font has two meanings. It's a type of script, but you can talk of font is like a root word of fountain. So I can see where they've taken and they're sort of reversing everything. So it would appear that this Church of Rome decided that rather than just being an abbot or a bishop, that what if I'm king and head of church and head of state, and I start reversing everything and I usurp the real church that was. And I use the term church in the sense of a universal spiritual, not a religion of today.
A community.
Yeah, yeah, because it even says in the modern Bible of today, and apparently the most popular one is the New International Version. Well, it's NIV, which does sound very naive. I didn't realize, and it's thanks to Michael Seidel. He sent me a link to his Facebook Live, and to bring out a new version of the Bible, you need to rewrite 10% of it to get the copyright to say it's a new version. So it's an open ambition that they rewrite over and over. But the magic is the deeper spiritual meaning can't be hidden from it. It's
Mm-hmm.
still there. The Bible is not something to say, oh, it's Christian, throw it away, dismiss it. There's a deeper spiritual meaning, it's an internal dialogue. It's it's the screenplay of this reality, just playing all the parts, going through all the motions, and because we've decided to take the fruit from the lower branches and experience from the tree of good and evil. So, like Jason says, the tree of good and evil implies that man didn't do anything wrong. Evil was already here. That's the left hand of God. It must be. It's the anti-nature program testing out the creation, which is the right hand of God. But does the left hand know what the right hand's doing?
Yeah.
And we are in the image of God. Have we not all got good and bad in us?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the difference. It's like knowing how to do evil is one thing, but acting it is another thing. You could say, like with martial arts, you know how to kill someone, but having the knowledge of it and doing it are two very different things. Doesn't mean once you know how to do it, go out and do it, because it then comes, would I want someone to do that to me as well? So
With great
that's, to me,
responsibility, right? With that great power comes with responsibility. And so that's why martial arts, there is reverence of the power you can wield. Yes, you may be able to kill, but it is the question of your responsibility around your discernment and knowing when it's meant to be applied. Yeah. And this is all of life. Those are the greatest simple metaphors and analogies of, all of life. Like, yes, you may know something, but the wisdom comes with the integration and application. It's not oh yeah, you hear so much of this so flippant arrogance that people know everything, but most of those people are just, like we say, it's flippant. So they're just flipping it out there and just like, I know this and I know that. And yet there's no application, there's no integration, there is no actual embodiment. That's what life is. go back to feeling. And that's why, hey, you've got to feel it to reveal it, to heal it, because feeling will tell you everything. Your feelings, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, are the key to this reality. You are manifesting everything, the sensation, the embodiment of it. Yeah, even the people that think they know it all, they're going to manifest those experiences. They're going to that are forcing them to apply what they think. So, thank you. I love that you're bringing this up, because when you started talking our messages, I was thinking, oh, dive deeper into this. He's bringing up the Irish roots in my family. These are also tangible when they're in your family, when you're in your blood, and it kind of this is what we'll do if you have an actual connection to it. That's You're going to be that much drawn to revealing it, to want to actually see it, to understand it, to know it better, because that is a part of you, and really, it's a part of all of us. I don't think there's anybody, even if you're not Irish, even if you're not whatever. It boils down to everybody has that inner sense of I want to know, that desire, that inner child says, "Show me, show me the truth. I want to know, even if it's scary." you know.
Well, it's openly sort of admitted on these genealogy things. I've seen it where it says um, how many people are, if you go back far enough to say to this character Genghis Khan, and we're all related. So what does that say about? See, the weird thing is with genealogy, if you take yourself as the start point, you get a pyramid, an inverse pyramid.
Mhm.
But if you take an ancestor and come forward, you get a pyramid structure as well. But yeah, with me, this all started. It's like I've got that feeling, that overwhelming, strong feeling. I've got no actual evidence, and I can't claim I've done any real research. I'm just following a hunch, and something as this interactive field has presented me with what I'm looking for. I've been alerted to. I mean, this 𝐒𝐬𝐬𝐲 channel is a big channel. I think it's 130 odd thousand subscribers. What he's showing is it's superb. He's
Mhm.
showing official records, court cases where you've got a black man who's suing another slave owner to get this slave back for lifelong servitude. And
Mhm.
it's like, this is very different, but it's been this political bureaucratic genocide of all the native tribes. Oh, that reminds me, they've even taken another word, Aboriginal. Well, ab again comes from Gaelic, it means father, so it's quite right to say Aboriginal. They are originals of the father, as it were.
Mm.
But yeah, it's the very darkest skinned ones, and it's like, yes, I can see where they've got their Nubian Egyptian kings and queens from for this supposed dynasty. They've just taken the images, this perceived dark side can only take something already in existence and twist it, manipulate it, but to actually create something original, they can't do it. And they
Mhm.
have run out ammunition, they have run out of tactics. This is why we're getting repeat scripts. But those scripts are actually very revealing. I mean, we've had this Ohio thing.
Mhm.
It's like, see what you're saying in your very twisted way. If you are not on the right spiritual path, you will derail and spill your essence, and it will be catastrophic. Because it's also shown like a nuclear mushroom cloud, but it's completely black. So there's no light in it at all. That's basically what they're displaying in their weird warped way. But it is guiding humanity if you see past all the fear, like you say, that it's all clouds, let them just drift past and stay neutral to it all. Yeah, because, oh yeah, disclaimer. With anything I talk about here, I'm not doing this to be an accuser and point a finger and say, go out and get these evil people, because that's doing another negative. All I'm doing is helping to expose what is, so we can then see through it, because
Hmm.
it does not doing that inner work. That is the most important thing to this. If you build a building and you haven't checked that foundation, that's going to collapse. If
Hmm.
you're leaving always a doubt and fear open, forget it. You're not going to make it. And I ain't saying that to spread fear. I'm saying that because that is the truth. If you've got a door open to let fear back in, that will just grow, and it's like, oh. And I don't want anybody to go.
Well, awareness is key, but there's a certain you have to go through certain experiences so that things can be presented and revealed to you, that you can be in awareness of it. But if you attach to it, like, yeah, it's just like you have a thought and you think, oh my gosh, where did that thought come from? That's like a horrible thought. Why would I ever? You can even know the expansiveness and the depths of which you yourself can think. You also understand that people are capable of. If you spot it, so in order to spot it, you got to got it for it first. You got to see it within to recognize it without. It's like what I've said in some of my older videos, especially when you own yourself in your totality. This, you hear the people, the work, the healing journey, spiritual awakening, shadow work, the dark night of the soul. There's so many labels. Bottom line is coding yourself. No, it is getting to the root core of who you are on levels, in the yang, the good, the bad, the feminine, the masculine. If you don't know yourself, you will easily be deceived by those around you. You have to also know your own manipulation, your own deception, to see it coming at you. Now, the people who don't own it in themselves are the ones who fall victim to their own manipulation and deception. Why? Because you attract where you're at. And even the people who say, why does this keep happening to me? I don't understand why. What was your part in it? It's really humbling to recognize, hmm, I was trying to manipulate the circumstances just as much as they were doing it to me. That's the energy in how we attract people in our lives. If you're trying to get your needs and you're not communicating them, and you're just, oh no, it's normal, it's like that, like turning a blind eye, then you're also denying your truth, and that truth is always exposed on the outside. So that other person comes to you and you want to play victim. Reality is you were just much the perpetrator of the circumstance. It's humbling, and when you're really doing this work, you see it. But to the average person who's just getting started, that's the how dare you, like, you're going to exhibit anger. And I know because I did it years ago. My perfect example was when I was dating someone who I felt was behaving poorly. And I was over here crying about, did you see what he did to me? Do you see how he's behaving towards me? And my friends around me would be saying to me, Lana, don't let him steal your joy. Just be happy. And at that time, I was very angry, like, how dare you? You just don't get it. But now I look back and go, oh, I wanted people to enable you in your victimhood, but you weren't seeing how you were also enabling that behavior through your not owning your own stuff. And also, I wasn't choosing my happiness, that I was actually fighting to gain happiness with somebody who was not in alignment with that. So often we think to stay in these circumstances because we're supposed to, the obligatory, like, well, we're supposed to make it work. And it's very common. And I speak from a woman's perspective. It's very common for a woman to stay in a situation because there are kids involved, because the father should be there. And then, there's a whole story. And this whole culture has really poisoned these lives. If the relationship is not coherent, if there's no process, then why are you with something that you're fighting someone else, but you yourself are with the situation? You sometimes have to walk away with the tough love, the other person wake up. Sometimes you sticking around can actually be what's causing continue to spiral out of control. So you make the choice. the change will happen. But once you make choices, changes happen and changes create more choices. So there's more available. So I know there's my, but the ultimate is we're coming back to this is the great reveal. And the great reveal starts with ourselves. So when we own ourselves in our fullness, our wholeness, all the good and the bad, because that's what makes us so beautiful. That's what makes us so human, is the fact that we have so many aspects, many, flavors. There's play, there's drama. I mean, we're all drama queens and kings here. Ultimately, we are all stars of our own show. We're putting on a show. So put on your best show. You get to choose. I have my sister visiting and I'm watching my niece. I understand the raging of a teenager about to turn 14 and I'm over here going, okay, so now you didn't get your way, and I'm trying to speak from from an adult perspective. So don't you know that you can attract more bees with honey? Like, I'm trying to share that we want to see you happy. So why are you being mean to the people you want something from? People don't want to give to someone who's ungrateful. Like, I'm trying to communicate a certain way that I also know what it was like when I was that age, because I had a lot of anger at that age too. She's got a whole lot of Aries. I mean, I'm a Leo, so but it's that we need to have dialogue. And if you don't have dialogue, then you get stuck and the poison festers, lingers, and anyway, no.
Yeah, that was the thing. Yeah, it doesn't negate from doing that inner work. It's like this is all very fascinating. It just helps make sense of it. So it is really still subsidiary. But I looked at this Gaelic language, and it's runic basically, and it's like, well, I can see how you could basically it's long or short lines, and it reads. This is the Ogham. I think it's how it's pronounced. The Ogham dictionary. There's probably something in that word. It's the Gaelic,
Mm.
and it's from the bottom upwards, and there's like a central line. So you have long lines or short lines, and obviously a lot less letters than today. But interestingly, when you get to where's my notes? When you get to the EA, it looks very much like I think it's Chiron, the symbol for Chiron. It's a straight line with an X, and then you've got that's EA, and then you've got IA, and it looks very much like that IXXI, but turns on its vertical axis, as it were.
Oh, James.
Oh, excuse me a minute. Hello, yeah,
James.
yeah.
There's some tins of vegan curry down here if you want to come down and get some.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll come down a bit later. Thank you. Food just comes. Vegan curry because hardly anybody else eats it, and it'll do me. I'm not going to worry about what's in it. And I can't like. I know we're pretty indestructible. Okay, that we do have finite limits, and but my relationship with the body and the communication with the body has changed. It's like if there's a pain, it's like I ain't gonna suppress it. I'm not gonna ignore it. That's telling me something. We're always the last to know. That's talking about the conscious mind, the definite, because the mind know better, and it's just take a painkiller, I'll be fine. And actually, you've got a fractured bone, and if you leave it, it's going to become very serious. And it's like listen to what the pain is telling you. Definitely, it's a good teacher. And the other thing, the theme, if you go with the Anunnaki story, Enki does the unthinkable. When a lot of people talk about meditation, you've got to switch the mind up. Don't think. So there's that theme of doing the unthinkable again. And
Doing the
well, the way I get through every day, it's like increasingly so. It's like my conscious mind can't figure this out. I'll give it to the universe. You know more than me. You solve it. And it does. It's brilliant. It comes back like a boomerang as a picture in the mind. It's like, ah. And I thought, yeah, aha. So that's the first and eighth letter, and the eighth and the first letter. So you've got 1881. So you've got 11. You've got your XX if you take the center point of the two eighths. So again, it's being reflected. But it's also the metaverse.
So wait a minute. Are you saying, thinking in terms of Roman numerals, and are you talking numerology here? So the letters are actually also congruent with the numerology and
Oh,
the
yeah.
Roman representations?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Ooh, I like that. That's
So your first letter, well, the creator must be one, so that's the alpha. That's the top. It even looks like a pyramid. You've got that little line. You've got that top section.
mm-hmm.
H is the eighth letter. That's infinity, metaverse. It's regenerational because when a cell forms into two and does that, there's a little bridge before it becomes two cells. So that's your letter H. That's your two pillars. Where the balance between the two as well. It's also reflected on the two temples and the pineal gland as well. But we mustn't forget the pituitary glands because it's too much, I feel, on the pineal and forgetting the pituitary because there must be a divine feminine and masculine principle for creation. So it must take both those glands to be switched on, as it were.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure. Well, and the pituitary regulates all the hormones, and yeah, the pituitary. So, like a lot of with Kundalini yoga, you've got your pituitary pineal gland, and there's one particular kriya that I have, and it's on my playlist too. But I also do the kirtan kriya. So you're imagining each of the word, the mantra syllables come. Sa comes through the pineal and out the pituitary. So what you're doing, and it's, if you're not used to it, you're going to start feeling that tingling sensation that awakens the third eye, the pituitary. But it's really fascinating. It will totally bliss you out. But during that time, and yeah, the mind's always going to try to talk and all, but it's like you get these quick insights from short, simple meditation because you're stimulating these points.
yeah, it's like someone getting a feather and just sort of brushing it very lightly. It's like, oh, that's where all the seven chakras are. I can feel exactly where they are now. It's like ah, so
Tickle.
that's in relation. Yeah, and it's like you can feel them switching on, and that's again. I feel it goes back to that radio thing where if you're tuned to a certain frequency, the response you get from this interactive field will match that frequency. But then as you change your frequency, so if you lose fear, you start moving across the band and you're picking up on a new frequency. So therefore the reflection you're now getting back is less negative, less fearful. It all just falls away. It's incredible. And it's like, yeah. Actually, there was a question asked the other day. If I had the choice of knowing everything, going out this reality, finding the doorway, going out and then knowing everything, having it all the questions answered, or staying here, I opted for staying here because this is so much fun. and then I want to be it's like manners cost nothing. Got to be the perfect gentleman. If I do find the door, I'm gonna have to hold it open for everyone.
I honestly don't. This is I know I love listening to every different uh commentaries and feelings and even the research because it's all personal, like we talked about, like everybody's sparking something with has the keys to the whole picture. I don't think that anyone is going to get it. It's meant to be a collective collaboration, which is why found that way. There was another guy. Do you listen to James Drew too? He's pretty fascinating and funny to listen to because he goes like, yeah, we talked about that last week. he just blows my mind because it's a lot of stuff he says out loud over here going, boy, I've thought this for a long time, and someone's actually saying it, and, like, because not everybody takes it the right way. Depends on how, some people are really sensitive, especially the way he communicates it out there. He just goes through this spiral. But the other guy that's over in Norway, I think he did a thing with James True, and I think the other guy, oh gosh, I can see his face. He's got bright blue eyes, and he's one of the reasons I found a couple people too. Open Your Reality. He's the Open Your Reality guy. So anyway, and I think he's on the east coast of Florida. Brought those two guys on, and although I didn't watch the video. Although my understanding is James True, I think, doesn't believe in the soul trap, right? I personally don't either, because I think that's disempowering. We're much more powerful than we realize. I came here by choice. I've also my own personal experience. I know I came here by choice. I know it because I've seen it. I've heard it. I've been in those spaces where, yep, yep, we're here to collaborate, to come back together and get it right this time, because of the whole purpose we came here for to begin with. This isn't our first rodeo. This isn't our first reset. We've gone through this enough times. It's just some of us still have the remnants. We didn't get fully wiped clean. Had you seen the movie Mr. Nobody?
Sorry,
Had you seen the movie Mr. Nobody?
no,
Mr.
I don't think I have.
This Mr. Nobody is with the actor. I can see his face. Anyway, basically, when we come into the world, we're born. Right before we're born, we're supposedly in heaven. Angels come in and to us, right? To our that's little divot. It's kind of a cute analogy, little story. But essentially, this young boy, this man, story backwards, is telling us that he didn't get this, didn't forget anything, and then he was able to live various lives. He went when he made the choice in this direction. He was with this person and married. He went with this person and another. There's like spin-offs of all these choices. Made a different choice, or he had several choices and lived several lives as a result of not getting that. And one of the reasons
Oh,
is, yeah, it's really good. It's very,
no,
very thought provoking.
it's always highlighted on social media about certain people always doing that. It's like, oh, is that where they've got that from then?
Well, and I always think of this. There's two. I remember it very when I was in Catholic school. Done a lot. The hush hush in the libraries. Hush hush. It's also I see it as the forbidden. Don't tell. And that's where I think we're really at now in the world. Like when we're young, we're told to be quiet, but the irony is we knew more as children. So the more we were hushed hush, that hush hush kept us from remembering that which we became in initially. The whole purpose is these young children should be like fostered into and nurtured, share that wisdom. I've always felt this, even though I don't have children of my own. I've always been like, I want to just sit with the children. Probably should, you know, space. It's sit with the children and nurture that out of them, because they're coming in, and those young beings haven't learned to articulate. How many of these young children have come in and said, I had a past life, not even knowing that I had a past life. It's I am this person, still believing it. And then, the little boy who was married to a woman, and he met her, and he's sharing, where's my guitar and where's this, or the other one who was a pilot. All these amazing stories there's proof in the pudding, they say, but nurture it. And because until the age of 6 or 7, Jesuits knew, give me a child and I will show you the man, because they knew that was the most important. Wash and hush it out of us to make us forget what we know. Like when I think of younger self, I think of the inner wise child. I refer to my inner child as the one too, just as much as my inner woman, wise crone, or whatever, because I believe We have wisdom in all periods of our life, and so much to teach ourselves.
This is why, with fashion, it's been encouraged for women to wear high heels so their souls are further away from the earth. So you're out of contact with it, because of the thing about women's intuition is true. Something else I don't want anybody to know. But it's amazing. It's like, once you sort of see the pattern, it's like, well, I can look to the dark side. No, I get what they're showing, because I can undo the twist. And it's like, oh, it's nothing to worry about there. It's just more theatre show.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like, to me now, the world is perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't need fixing. There's nothing to fix. But it's almost like a blank canvas on which to paint as well. Or there's a scene already there, but it just needs a bit of editing and a bit of sort of jazzing up a bit. But it's fun. So yeah, it's like, I've also found the Dead Sea Scrolls as well out of it, and that, by that I mean, you look at any social media, and then some of these, it's like gaslighting and things. It's like, dead, seen that scroll, Dead Sea Scroll. It's like, not even going to open that. Keep going. I was sent one the other day about how we should be worried about the AI because they've got this lifelike robot in the shop. It was so lifelike, it blinks, and it's like, well, that's just really poor acting. A human trying to be a robot and give you the impression it's the robot trying to be a human. Oh dear.
You were saying because the ones who can't, and some of us are those too. I mean, we're not reality. Though you were saying earlier about stolen technology, using what's available and rebranding or remarketing it or changing it and to manipulate it for his story. I was also thinking the cloning, like even the cloning, you cannot get a duplicate, you cannot get a map, not you cannot fabricate. Even with the AI, like this is the part people don't understand. Like I can always see the benevolent and the malevolent. I can always see the good and the bad because that's the duality of the nature reality of this world life. And so I can see where it's very beneficial. And there may be that period where we have to accept an integration with it. But again, discernment, it's all awareness. On I can also see it going in the other too, but it's up to us to choose which direction it goes if that is what is meant to do. Because I've had these glimpses into the fact that AI has always been there. It was never anything new. Again, nothing new under the sun. So this is again fear porn. Even the AI is a fear-based way of keeping you low in vibration and not benevolent in this opportunity. And I'm actually catching myself and saying this because in a certain sense I can't saying that I would be one to say it would actually be something beneficial. Like, and I say that with a humility and an ability to know that that could change. But ultimately, my back has always been, and ever since I've been in that and been in the different three legacies and seen the malevolence of, I've also witnessed and experienced the benevolence. Now, I go back to it was all designed by the military complex, or was. So again, if nothing is new under the sun, who's to say, again with reset, that this didn't already exist? The internet, our technology, we're not given anything new. We're really just given what's available. Here's a little teaser. Here's a little, let's get you hooked on it. Here's an addictive thing that we can put out there. And I know that we talked about how predictive programming is really just planting seeds for you to manifest it. So everything you think existed that is new has existed before. And saying that, I've gotten glimpses into this idea. I mean, I've done rooms and I've seen the grid, I've seen the digital, and I'm like, holograms, I've seen it. So it already exists. Who's to say the AI hasn't always been there? And I'm kind of still on the fence. Well, maybe it is an AI. This is a computer simulation, which means it is possible that we are plugged into another being. And I'm still working on where I get to meet that being, because I really believe our soul is not in whole, our souls are so vast, so infinite. Our souls can't inhabit these physical bodies. So we only have a small portion of our soul available to us, which is why it's important to really tap into your full wisdom, to do your meditation, to do whatever it is that brings you into your personal awareness and untapping, tapping into your mind, your body, your spirit, and your soul is essentially is getting to know your whole, like really decoding yourself, astrology, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, your Chinese astrology, your Western, all of it. Know it all so you can know yourself all. And then maybe you get to see the reality, the totality, because our souls can come back more the more we create space. So get rid of the you know, old belief systems. It's like doing a house cleaning. Mental floss is what I call meditation. To me is mental floss. You got to clear out all that garbage. You get rid of all that old stuff. You bring in more of that expansive wisdom. But you got to be willing to let go to be able to flow, to expand, grow. Um, so yeah, kind of ironic that I say that, but I've had these moments like, at what point am I going to maybe dabble in? Am I going to dip my toe? Because I don't think this is advanced, or not sharing the more advanced, because I'm still wondering about ChatGPT, all of these computer rating imaging, the imagery and stuff like that. I look at it and go, you know, they needed us to populate. They needed our data, our lives. I'm over here. I've lost 2 Facebook accounts, which means I've lost an entire history of my life to the AI. Because that's what Facebook does, is they collect data. They're just data collection. So whatever you're willing to share is getting populated in there. And I don't, yeah.
I've just got to disappear for a minute, but keep talking because I can still hear.
Okay. He's going to go get his. So if you think in terms of how much you have populated the AI, you also have to consider that is a form of, like, when you write a paper, write a book, and you have referenced somebody or something, or you have taken a quote and you want to give the AI. This is the disconnect I have with it, and the problem that I have with taking fully. It has to take it from all of us. Where's the bibliography? Where's the credit? Where is the referencing of the fact that the only reason it exists is because of us? I go, 𝐔𝐒𝐀𝐅, I love that. So we have to take that into consideration, to not just succumb to it, but also reinforce the need for transparency and authenticity also in the AI. Because if we are going to utilize it, we also need to consider that it is taking information from other people as well as ourselves. Just like you don't want somebody to steal your content and use it as their own. That's essentially the problem I have with it. Because I was raised where you the library, and when you wrote a paper, you wrote, the references, the bibliography, all the information you gathered is what you put in your content. So your content isn't always original. And if you're not referencing people when you're getting information, this person said this, and this is where the quote is coming from. Quotes are even not even original, because there's a certain point I quotes, and I'm like, heard this a long time before somebody popular. Like Nike just saying it for years, but Nike coined it because their advertisers are really good in their marketing department. But it boils down to, at what point are we going to hold the AI accountable? Because this world is so backwards, upside down, inside out, that we think that our leaders are creating rules and regulations to the average person who doesn't know anybody thinks it's there to protect them, when in reality it's to enslave and suppress. Because if you look at how it applies, apply to them, and it doesn't apply to these corporations that billions of dollars to lobby to have those rules and regulations there that's to protect them. So everything that's been established at this point now, really, like, you want to do something on your own so-called property at your home. You supposedly own it, but yet you got to ask for permission to do certain things. That's not
Yeah.
free. That's not right. So you have to consider that guy. Yes, there's benefits. There are negatives. If we are going to integrate with this, we are going to work with it. People need to stop being so complacent to it and not buy into the fear aspect of it, because it is there to serve us. Now we've already served it, our information, our lives, our data. So now, as humans, we need to be accountable and hold it. And I don't know how many people in that perspective, because there's, in that way, because so many people in content land, in the social media land, just want quick hits, quick lights, because this is a dopamine hit. This is what addiction is all about. And I'm this from having been doing this for so long, that yeah, get an AI to write your copyright. You can, which is that in itself is a total, like, um not hypocrisy. Because you're going to have AI create content, copyright for you, but it's not yours. I mean, you may feed it some data. Like, I wouldn't want to use it for data in that sense. The way I would use AI is as my personal assistant. I would be like, okay, help this, or maybe help streamline my current book that I'm writing to help me organize the chat, but not to the point where I want it writing my content, because you still need to go back and tweak. It's not going to sound like you, because it's going to sound like every single person that it's taking content. So there, like I said, there is benevolence, there is malevolence, but the question is always going to come down to: are you still stuck in the get rich quick, the fast paced, instant satisfaction? Is what they are banking on because of where we are in the world. They have given you the drive-throughs. They have given you data at your fingertips. They've given you everything you thought you did right at your fingertip, and this has become your slave. Your enslavement is, you can't put it down. We all do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it is also the accountability and the awareness of, wow, I just spent 2 hours surfing through something that just took me out of what I started. How many of you do that? I do. My sister and I will joke like, oh, well, I sat down for a moment to look up such and such, and the next thing I knew, I ended up down this other rabbit hole. And it's okay if like we're talking rabbit hole, but who's to say some of this, because I know that they've also scrubbed the internet. The time when you used to be able to find content and information and data and videos and all sorts of stuff without really having to, like, look at what's search engine and go, that's not what I'm looking for. Like, some people are going to take the first that comes to them, and that's designed for that now. Now that is blatant. The average person who's very much in touch and in tune can look at that and go, it's all ads, first off. And second, it is all, like, it's algorithm. So at this point, you have to be very discerning and knowing what you're looking for. That like, I know some of us can find stuff. For me, it's always dropped in my lap. Like, when I'm meant to see something literally show up in my face and drop in my lap. I'm not necessarily looking, it shows up to me. Um, but there's a lot of people who very easily get caught off guard, and you've seen it over the past 3 years, to where there's a lot of anger. People are on one side or the other, and they're fighting it for it or against it, and they're feeding it. And so whatever that is that you gravitate to, be willing to step back and go, why? Is it a trigger? Is it an injustice? Is it something that I'm trying to heal from my past? Because that's essentially what most people are operating from, is the motivation of trying that his long past, past. And that's the shadow work. That is the, but again, we're going to come back to how is this going to support as humanity? Well, a lot of people are really like fearful because again, this is fear porn. You know, even the AI is being used as fear porn specifically to make you think you need to choose, because that's what this whole, again, dual polarizing world is about, is getting you split. When you have to choose this or that, you've already been split. You are not obligated to have to choose a side. You can be neutral, witness, and observe. That is the meditation and mindfulness practices, breathing is about. It's about being in that awareness. Again, that's the reveal. The reveal is when you step back, see people make you choose, or you feel obligated or you feel influenced to choose a side, whatever that word is in your life. That itself is the trap. And I've talked about that. I have tons of videos that say choosing a side is the trap. It's the neutrality that will keep you sane. When you sit back and you just witness and observer, then you don't get caught off guard with those two, the trap. That because that halves of the whole. That's not the full picture. The side is going to get you fragmented, keep you like it's going to steal your vital life force energy. So I see it so often because I've been there. So 3 years ago, when all this craziness started, I got caught up in it. You're sharing on social media. Oh, gosh, did you see? And the child, da 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 da. You know, all that stuff. And the reality is, it's like it was designed to keep you engaged, because social media is all about you not engaging in your life. Yes, we use
Well,
it, but don't let it use you. Don't let it suck.
welcome to
Hmm?
welcome to Planet of the Apps.
Exactly.
I sort of turn this round a little bit because we're in a material world, so it will reflect things in a very material way. So if I mention Monaco, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Sweden, they're neutral countries. They are the most wealthy countries because they are neutral. They are telling you from their material perspective to stay neutral. So data collection, that must be the experiences in the metaphysical that we collect here to take back to our higher self. Because I feel we are very much in a game. It's like one perfect example of how imagination collectively can create reality is, I'm pretty certain there's a lot of people who love playing those interactive games and had that thought, oh, I wish I could do this all day and just sit here and order food online or whatever, have food instantly delivered. Well, they've got that. They've got exactly what they wished for, but they're not happy. It's so funny.
Action can only last for the addiction. It's always temporary. You
Yeah.
always have to come back to yourself.
Well, these devices are designed to work, but they're also designed to fail after a certain time because it's good business sense to you want the customers to come back.
Hmm.
But the nature of this system, you've only got to look at textbook narcissism. The key thing with narcissism is codependency. Or how many people honestly can put their hand up and say, I grow my own food, I don't need to go to a store or a supermarket to get anything. So we've been put into this situation, so we are codependent on the system. But there's some beautiful signs. If you think about the way they used to take buildings down, it was a wrecking ball approach and just smash into the side of it, dust clouds, destruction. Now it's all done nice and neatly and it's dismantled bit by bit by bit. And I feel that is also, the system is doing no different from us when we outwardly project. The system is outwardly projecting their frustration, because I thought in 2020 there's a feeling that this whole thing smacks of desperation. It's like they're throwing everything at us. You've got the
Hmm.
traveling circus. It's now not just the final night with, or the final show with the big tent. You've got all the sideshows. You've got all the candy floss, all the Ferris wheels, the haunted house rides. You've got the lot. But you can also say, well, I don't actually want to go in the fun fair. I'm quite happy sitting out here on the grass and enjoying the peace.
Yeah, the show is more from the outside than going in and engaging in it. Really. And sure enough, you know, it all started 3 years ago. I'm in the Kundalini yoga community. That's when Yogi Bhajan's improprieties came. I mean, I didn't never put him on a pedestal. And at the same time, I thought this is a sign for what's to come. Sure enough, when the things that started holding me was just like in Power versus Force, but there are scales of consciousness here. It even says in this book, we only need a certain amount of people to tip the scales and get us over the hump to really wake humanity up and to really bring us back up in as a culture, as a country, as humanity. That the came immediately when they threw this all out so deeply was they got sloppy and thought they had it in the bag and they thought they had their bases covered. They were getting sloppy the year before, and I already saw that because a lot of you know, what was it? Wiener laptop stuff, you know, that stuff coming to light. But essentially, it was like, we messed up. We got to throw something out there now. And it was just so sloppy. Like, if for those of us who've been awake for a long time, that's why so many of us were like, whoa, this is crazy. This isn't real. That's why so many of us were really finding each other because we realized, oh, you know, too, we're paying attention. And then some of us like, wait a minute, I thought you were there, but oh, you haven't gotten it. Okay, that's good. This year, I mean, right out the gate, now you see there's a certain element of a break for the people who really didn't get it over this even longer. But my heart goes out to him because it had to get to such a break. Okay, this is just too much to not see the coincidences and even the name towns and the fact that, you know, it's tying into their agenda. I mean, it's just crazy. And it's all if you remember back to the times of the Romans, the stories of the gladiators, that even the times of the kings and queens having theatrical, always use movies, actors, propaganda, you know, the newspapers, you know, yeah, there's a certain element of, again, they've always um, condemned those speakers. What do? They attack the character of an individual. They set them up to discredit them. So there's that point where you go, were these people really bad people? And you know, what's really sad is that people's lives are destroyed. Yes, they put hits on people. They totally take them out. You know, whether it's a, you know, special hanging that or shooting themselves in a way that you're like, well, how the heck could a person have done that to themselves? Kind of, or it's really like, you know, this person was an upstanding person in their community. They gave of themselves, and the next thing you know, there's a scandal. Now it's so easy to credit a person when you've got so much backing, and so it takes a lot of for a lot of people to speak up in the sense of what's going to come at me. So when you've got the real goods, you know, how many inventors out there, how many people have tried to bring back the hydrogen car,
Yeah.
things like that. That stuff's been around for a very long time. Electric cars and all that stuff has been around a long time before. We got plenty of recorded evidence, but they don't want you to know that you have so much more available because that disempowers them and they need to be in power. So that this is why it's so important to know thyself so well so you have your power again. That's the reclaiming of the power because again, if you know your crap, if you own your stuff, then it doesn't own you and therefore they can't own you. And that's the scary part is people waking up means back, you know, push. And they don't. So yes, there's going to be fear porn from every angle. And this is the year I say that the theme for me that came in is discernment. It's going to take a lot of knowing yourself to discern the lie at you. You thought it was bad in 2020. had controlled opposition. I threw that information out. I didn't do the research behind it. Like if you're not doing your due diligence, it comes back and bites you in the ass real quick, doesn't it? And it's embarrassing when you put content out there that isn't real content. It was just designed to discredit you because you put it out there. Fear porn is doing that again. This year they're going to ramp it up to that degree. So I'll use the AI as that because I believe it has been there. And that yes, they're getting advanced through us, but it's up to us to hold that accountability for it. It'd be interesting.
It's a reflection of when we get a pain, it's an alert. While they're putting all these horrific stories out there, I'm not a bit concerned. If they suddenly stop, that's when I will think, hang on a minute, because whatever step we take will be matched. It's like almost like a game of chess. I love the what's revealed in the word. So there's a crumb trail. So what happens when you reach the fall of crumb point and it tips? When they put enough crumbs down, and it's going to tip the scales back. When they talk about the earth, that's all I think they're really referring to. It's this imbalance that's been brought about. So we just need to bring it back into balance. There's always going to be good and evil in one form or another, but it doesn't need to be as extreme as it is now, because children can do things when they don't know, because they have to learn to share when they're like 3 years old. They want that's my toy. They haven't partly because of the programming. Is this is yours, this is for you, and so it's mine then, but no, now I've got to share it. So it's like the poor child's going, I'm confused now, which way to go with this one. And it's amazing because it's like, why bother playing an interactive computer game when you're in one? You're in the biggest interactive computer game, and it's beautiful. It's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
What is really interesting? Jason asked a series of questions to that ChatGPT. Yes, it depends what's programmed into it, but it doesn't know. It's just going to answer those questions. And I've also found a channel. I can't think of the name of it, but he's done a lot of the Bowie songs and used AI art. Obviously, he's had to say, I want this shown in the style of this. So there is still a human interaction, but they're actually very revealing. Purple skies and things. And because even with the music, it's not just the words, it's where the instrumental part comes in. It's numbers of beats and repeats are all a code. And I was sent a think about this. The drumming with anything spiritual, it comes from matching the heartbeat, the drum beat to the heartbeat, and then you can slow the heart down to bring people into a meditative state quicker. That's what it's really for. It's synchronization of that beat getting with the beat, but not the ones that the system gives us today, obviously. But it amazes me with the labels. So if I say technology, people straight away are going to think about computers and information. Sorry, yeah.
Technologies just take knowledge.
Well, these biological vessels are a design, so they are a type of technology. We have an informed field, so we are it. We are the informed technology. It's just how that label is perceived as, oh, it's computers, it's evil, it's artificial. But yeah, I agree with you that it's always played a part in. I mean, there'd be some very boring, like factory production line jobs, which would be so much better if you just left it to robots. But I like with the phone, it hasn't got limbs. It can't just run off and it can't decide for itself. So it is only a tool, but it's a very useful one, and it's brought so many of us together through the internet. So it's not all bad. It's only bad if you perceive it as bad. But the paradox of it is people have got the answers at their fingertips if they're prepared to look for it. And yet the information is now readily available in most people's hands, but they don't seem to be able to compute to formulate the question to put in to find the information, let alone discern the information. And it's like discern. Interestingly, Hedron, Collider, I thought that sounds very Hebrew. And I thought, I wonder what that comes out in Gaelic. And it comes out as Hadrian, basically. Hadrian's Wall. And I've always said that was a defensive wall to stop somebody coming from the south, not the other way around, not the ones from the south stopping the ones coming from the north. The defense positions are on the wrong side. On the subject of reversing things, Dublin, and I can't pronounce this as Gaelic, so I can only say it as how it looks in English, is 𝐕𝐢𝐴thar-Chliath. So Baal or Baal is an aspect of the sun god, of this original Irish Christianity of Aisa. So they've taken Baal, turned it into this demonic thing when it's the opposite. And it's like Jesus talks in parables. Well, a parable implies pair. So it's a Bible, it's parable, it's telling you exactly what it is. But it's been fixed to a historical setting. So people are seeing it as a literal story. But it's beautiful that there is this deeper meaning that still shines through from it. And it's like, and it's no different from hearing songs that you've heard 100 times before, and there's a revelation in it. The Great Reset is finding this vibration level that opens up a whole new world that doesn't look any different, but it definitely is different. That's the Great Reset. We're meant to be sovereign individuals. Every individual person is a nation in their own right, but in a community working together, not being controlled by something that is governing the minds and telling you what you can have and what you can't have. And even money is not evil. If you say gave me 5 potatoes and I haven't got anything at that moment, I'll give you a promissory note saying, when I have, I don't know, parsnips available, I will give you 5 parsnips. So that piece of paper has a value of 5 vegetables. And it's just individual transactions between 2 people. It doesn't need banks. It doesn't need any of this. And this is it's like, it's so almost so obvious that you miss it. It's like World Economic Forum. Well, think of the initials and reverse them. It's telling you it's the very few that are doing it. And it is all based on illusions, and it is just to generate fear. That's what powers the entire thing. It's human energy that is doing it. But people don't like being told the truth. Oh, this has happened. Well, you did that to yourself. They don't want to hear that. They want, like you say, they want to be comforted. They want that reinforcement of being victim. And they don't want to hear the truth.
And they tell the stories to support the lie, which is ironic, because the lie they tell themselves about themselves that they own, always going to go back to knowing that if you know the stuff you lied about to yourself, then you're not going to defend the lie because they owned it. And again, lies always reveal themselves. You can't maintain a lie unless you have been living a lie to the point where you don't know it. That's the exception. And many of us have been living a lie, but when we wake up to it, it's like you cannot put me back in the bottle. You cannot, the Pandora's box has been opened. It's like once it's revealed, you can't go back. You can't, oh, let me just put it back away, pressing it, because you're going to express it. And like power versus, again, power, your innate power. Force is a lie. Force is the appearance of having power that doesn't come in front of you naturally. And so any lie somebody's trying to maintain, you watch them long enough, you'll see them slip up because they themselves can't always remember all the lie. That is so exhausting. It will literally drain you of your life force because, again, it's the mind creating the story, and now you have to maintain that story. Whereas if embodiment, if it's your there's nothing to support other than just be. And there's less energy that's actually expended. You actually fuel yourself by staying in the. Whereas again, the line force drains, and it just that's exactly what it does. That's what they do. So after a certain point, doesn't matter. It's gonna reveal itself. The cookie crumbs. You're gonna all little crumbs, and you go, huh? Oh, that doesn't make sense. And Blue had asked something about years. I want to real quick. In Kundalini tradition, we are taught about how every 7 years we have a cycle of consciousness. Every 11 years is our cycle of intelligence. And the 18-year cycle is our vitality. So if you look at your birth, you look at your years, this is another add on to your decode yourself. Say you're 4 years old, throw a number out there. At 44, have the 11th cycle, right? Now you're in the conscious, what I say, I always get those twisted, but 11 years you're increasing, you're gaining in your consciousness. And sometimes there's a really pivotal where you're like, whoa, this been intense. Like I am actually coming up on my 49 year, which 7 year in the consciousness. So here we go. We're getting another upgrade. 42. Now we're at 49. And sometimes we have clusters where they're happening all the time. So when you're in awareness of where you're at, it's like, oh, I'm getting an upgrade. I just reminded myself by bringing that up because Blue mentioned the 7 years. Every 7 years, you're increasing your consciousness. Every 11 years, you're going to increase in your intelligence, and every 18 years, you're gonna have to check yourself for your vitality. Are you feeling depleted, or are you able to reclaim it? Because I don't believe in the aging process. I think that time is the trap. If there's any trap, it's time. Time is the enslavement system. Because everything revolves around time. Everything. What time are we going to meet? How long have you been somewhere? How old are you? Every little detail is according to time. You're being timed.
Yeah. It is, but this whole reality works as a countdown clock as well. This is all the cylindrical systems, as Jason has shown. It's what comes out of that as well. But that's saying you're only as old as you feel. So again, it comes back to feeling, and I really do feel that we can at least stop the aging, if not reverse it to some degree. Apparently, 26 is supposed to be the optimum age to be, but at 26, 27. So, but I've thought about this before. It's like I'd be happy to just like stop aging and stay as I am now, and not get any older not not be any younger, because then I can say, oh, I'm too old to do that. It gets me my get out of jail card, as it were. No, it's this is turning out to be a fantastically beautiful experience. To me, as I've said several times today, the world is absolutely perfect. Because unless I listen to scripts that are being presented, and most of them are just so ludicrous, they fall apart. In some ways, we're taught about judgment and comparison, but by doing comparison on these different stories we're presented, they fall apart because they contradict, and they don't match up with each other. I mean, I thought I jokingly said, about 3 years ago, I said, "Isn't it amazing? All the churches have locked their doors, and the Sunday services have been left to the buses." And it's like, if that wasn't a wake up call for people, something that would appear to be spiritual for your best interests, and they shut the doors. If that doesn't tell people, but clearly it hasn't, because a lot of them have gone back for more. And it's like, oh dear.
But everybody to man, right? Like that was the big one. I was like, how many people are buying into these stories, yet they claim to be Christian? trust in God. I'm seeing hypocrisy. And like, you believe God, then you believe in your body. You believe in, its divine creation is perfect as it is.
Well,
Exactly.
it's the house of God, and yet on the door it's got a sort of government no smoking sign and various other rules and regulations and things. But you don't get any ministers speaking out. Not one of them is sort of criticizing governments, but they are playing this sort of Inquisition Axe pendulum again, because people are so programmed. I feel what will come out of Ohio, hopefully, will people see from the actions of the government that they're not got their best interests in heart, but because they are programmed to look externally, they will turn back to religion. And yeah, for a time they'll have a golden age and everything will look lovely, but they realise too late that, oh, we've got no freedoms. This is just an ongoing. This is the Roman Empire. It never failed. It just morphed. It's the same nature, the same narcissistic pattern. If you don't agree with us, then we're just burn you. I'd even go so far as to say this whole story of Aztecs doing cutting out someone's heart, I don't feel was the Aztecs. I feel it was we call them Spaniards,
Mm.
and I feel it was them that were doing it.
Is it the
So
Khazarians essentially? Yeah.
there seems to be this. I don't know what name they would really go under, because they hide behind so many masks. They don't want to be found ultimately, but you can call them Khazarians. There's the Roman nose comes into this as well. The tiny hats, as one Jason uses, which is a pretty good sort of visual representation, because it's too convenient to point the finger at any obvious group. It's something behind that. And personally, I feel the clue is if you ever see one of these 3D ultrasounds of a fetus of about 4 or 5 months old, and the head proportion, the eye proportion, and then think of your classic ET. What if
Mm.
you've got a humanity that had such advanced technology and their mission was to test creation, and they've taken it to the ultimate level that they can't reverse the damage they've done. They need the creativity. They're looking for certain individuals that they can't pinpoint. This is why they need their version of an all-seeing eye. They're looking for certain individuals that can crack it for them, because it's something they can't do. But because of their nature, they can't openly come out and say we're stuck. Their egos won't allow them to it. It would also require them to explain what the problem is and how the problem occurred, which would unravel everything. That's just my feeling on it. It's a type of humanity that went too far, replaced natural birth with some form of cloning or replication process, and where we are a human resource, just like is implied by the material world. You don't have, I forget what the old term was, but it's always human resources department. We're classed as like an energy,
Yeah.
and we are seen very much as an energy. And when you think about all these words and terms, they all have a perspective. So, oh, you can't do that for health and safety reasons. Well, whose health and safety are we talking about? You
Mm.
need planning permission. Well, why? What is it you don't want me to unearth? Because I can see how the ground lies, quite literally. There's that feeling with a certain sort of like society exclusivity to every golf club. It's like this air of, oh, you're not one of us. it's the perfect cover to cover things up. It's like, oh, put a golf course there. No one's going to dare dig that up. No one dare open that coffin that comes off the Hercules with an American flag. That's so disrespectful. But what really is in there? Because I don't believe anything they do at all.
Well, it's
But,
interesting what we understand our bloodlines are seeking out other because when the whole DNA thing came out, and yeah, I mean, I was in the military. They got my blood. It doesn't really matter. But conversations my sister and I for many years, I said I've always felt like, so for myself, I know there is I call it the rainbow. I only know this because of the ceremony I did, and I saw them watching. I did do a little research. Know there used to be, and maybe there still is, people of the Rainbow Tribe. I never knew about it. I just know my experience. And so when I think in terms of calling upon, I call upon myself because it is the of all that is, and the Rainbow Tribe. Those are just small fractions of the bigger picture, but in the sense of there is clearly a collective working on this. Know that we came in here by. There's no doubt in my mind, like we said in the beginning, we're here by choice because it's fun. It's like a game. And when I was a little girl, I used to think of it in terms of like the rat and the mouse, and that us humans are doing exactly like the rat or the mouse and trying to find our way back out, trying to find our way back. Like I used to say when we were young, I know things, but then our mind gets swiped, and then now we're trying to remember our youth, what we came in. So that's why sometimes when I do little rituals and meditations, I will actually tap into my inner wise child, say my young self. I know you got some wisdom in there. What is it? Because how many people, and this is something I've said to my girlfriends and my friends and said, when you were a child, what was it you wanted to do that really lit your heart up? So because 9 times out of 10, as an adult, you went through the motions, but that's what you go back to. So it's no different than having that passion that was the power within you, knowing the gnosis, your inner child, that now you're an adult and you're just like, why did I go through this whole waste of my time in life? Experiences is all they were. Recognize that I ever wanted to do, known from the start. We all know from the start. That's why I say your inner child, that's why inner child healing, that's why rebirthings are so important. Because really what it is reclaiming that innocent essence that with you never goes away. And you just have to have it revealed again. You got to feel, reveal. And it always comes back because it's never gone.
yeah. Well, I guess in that case, then I must be always wanted to play the part of the boy that points out that the king has no clothes on. Then, because that's what I'm doing with this reality. It's like, well, that's so obviously wrong, and it's like that's actually a really good. Although it's told as a children's story, it's the what because the story is only the worthy can see, and of course you've got this whole thing of what will they think of me if I don't go along with this? But the one who's true to himself, it says he's naked on that horse. It's like don't care what anybody else thinks. You've got to be your own sovereign being, and it's like I can see through this. It's not what you're all telling me, and that feeling has never gone away about this reality. But of course, you come into this reality, you've got nothing to go on, no experience, don't know where to look, and it takes time to process. But then you have to go through the process and experience things, all the bad things. But how bad are they when all those things have got you to this moment in time? They can't be bad. They're just experiences. It's just we put a judgment on them. Okay, there are things that happen. You might hurt yourself, and ouch, that hurts. But even that, it's like, I know not to do that again, as it were. Maybe touching a hot tap or something, and you've been told, don't touch that, you'll burn yourself. So of course, I'm going to do it. Oh yeah, ouch. I've learned the lesson. I know not to do that again. But even
Mhm.
that, that can be reversed. Quite a while ago now, I was using the grill and I caught my finger on the metal bit, and it's like it's immediately happened. So I haven't got to rewind the external story that far. Now I play it forward again. The next morning, I'm looking, thinking, there's not even sign of a blister. There's no feeling of burning. It's like, wow, I've healed just by overriding the thought what the five senses externally were telling me, and going with the intuition. And that is it's in that saying about you've got all the answers inside. To the conscious mind, it's like, well, I don't know anything, but it's like the Google Cloud. You're drawing on, say, your higher self. The information will just come to you as and when you need it. It's just getting that Wi-Fi, that sort of that real super broadband connection to our higher self, getting that sort of working properly. And it's even described as getting a spiritual download. Well, so, and it seems to be a mixture of undefined senses, feelings, pictures. I've even had it as like a thumbs up on Facebook, as shown in my mind to say you got it, as it were, or a confirmation sign. It's just shown to you in a way that you're going to recognize. It won't sort of hide as some sort of convoluted and out. They're always like really simple confirmations. And then tapping in to that feeling, it just becomes more and more recognizable. It becomes familiar. So it's like, oh yeah, I know that feeling. And it's like, oh, feeling triggered again. I see the emotions as being like a petition that's taken to the government with 1,000 signatures. It's like I'm hearing what that emotion is telling me. I'm not denying it. It's like, but I make an informed decision. I'll stay in the balance, and this is judgment day on that emotion, on the whatever's presented. So judgment day is not one day; it's every day, because we put judgment on everything. We can't help it. Yeah, I was thinking I thought I better put the light on, otherwise it looks like yin and yang. But I haven't got a white T-shirt to sort of. it, it's just amazing though what is shown.
Mm-hmm. You know, and when you were mentioning, like when you have the ouch, it reminded me of something that we teach in the Beyond Addiction program about how it's the nervous system also set ourselves. If we deny the experience of like you touching the metal, you replayed it, you stayed with it, you didn't try to escape it. And this is what creates the lingering trauma that's unhealed, is watching children when they're really young, that they accidentally walk into something and they get an owie. If the parent learned through the parents first, allowing them to, you watch a child, what they do, they will put that body part on that object. I've seen it with little children where they tap their head and then they put their head there and they stay there for a moment. It's like they're making peace with the moment, making peace
Yeah,
with experience. They're processing experience as opposed to being rejected. Once rejected, it still lingers. It lingers longer when you eject than if you stay present. So parents teach their children to be afraid, to cry, to get upset, to not process. They also teach their children to lie because of punishment. Depending on how you punish that child, whether they learn, they're going to lie in the future. Did you take a cookie from the cookie jar? Tell me, yes or no. And then if you punish them, now they're learning there is pain that comes with being true. So that's where lies come from, is you teach the child to lie because you've given them pain as a response. Whereas honestly, did you take a cookie? Okay, you took the cookie. Now we're gonna talk about this because we want to understand that it's okay to take a cookie, but you have to ask for permission. Like you have to take everything as a learning opportunity. And as adults, we forget how we learned how to lie, how to cry, how to get stuck in these situations where we eject. We learned to eject because we were ejected. We learn to reject because we reject. We were rejected. We learn to bully because we were bullied. We have to go back to the root of why everything happened and carrying again trauma. So, as I've said in some of the videos, my analogy is we're a bunch of flinging our shit at each other and expecting others to meet our child. So we have all this stuff, and we think that effectively. Most of the problems that we have in the world is poor communication. And most of it's because I express ourselves. So again, we'll go back to feeling. If you don't know how to express yourself, you've been taught to suppress, reject, to eject, then it's highly unlikely you'll know how to communicate that with somebody, which is why it's so important. The moment you recognize is the moment you should deal with, as opposed to I'll deal with that later. This is the major life lesson that I think most of us, as you're coming through, that you're like, wow, why? And then when you go to the root, oh, ooh, I see that. I see how that happened.
Definitely. I caught my mind last week. It's like, I really need to get my act together and manifest. I'm struggling here. And of course, the mind starts thinking about ways it's going to come. And it's like, oh, no, you don't. Shut up. It's like, you put the thought out there,
It's trying
leave
to
it, and yeah. Oh, yeah, our own worst enemy is perfectly true. Who knows you better than your lower self or false persona self? It There's nobody knows you better than you. Um, this is another thing. They've taken this. Oh, there's only one. You've got to believe in one savior, which is always external, and there's one devil or one whatever. But it's not. It's in all of us. We've all got that good and bad, that duality side, and therefore, like we want the world to change. Well, we've got to change ourselves first. That is the great reset. We're always trained to look outside, and I'm just reading the comments. Oh yeah, Mish said about Rudolf Steiner. Um, Another amazing. I would say even it's like, did that guy have a telescope and he could see 100 years ahead? It's like it's scarily accurate what he was saying in like 1917 about now. It's like wow, it's like he could see it all happening, and it's come sort of full circle the way he describes about the sun as a spirit and sort of an interpretation of something coming, the spirit of the creator coming through the sun, and it's gone full circle with this Irish wisdom, and it would make sense that you would salvage what you can, and I thought, well, it's air, so it's to do with air, and
Mm.
it's like this is so incredible, and I can see the way that everything is sort of spread. They are the sea people, they are the Phoenicians, they're the ones that, and that they're not disconnected from the Moors, they're in contact with them. The Moors are part of the same tribe, but we've been told a story that has separated us using the most visual things, because we do. If I was to see um, supporters of a particular football team, invariably a lot of them will be wearing that team's colours. So I would straight away refer to them as, say, Rangers or Celtic supporters, just purely based on they're wearing green and white or dark blue.
Mm.
Sort of, it's like the first visual way of describing them. So Moors is probably because they moored ships, because they are the sea people. They are also Phoenicians as well. They're not separate. And the picture that comes out of it, the nations in the United States, that's what the Civil War was really against. And they were linguistically linked, not racially linked. So you could have very black part of this tribe, and others will be very light skinned, and every shade in between. But it, it's something in the word India as well that to me suggests something that's universal about it. I don't know why. I can't even sort of think of a sort of dictionary definition of it. But it just feels like it's saying something about, because it's got the word in for a start. So in dire, well, we're in a dire reality when we have a negative perspective on it. That's for sure.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been very cleverly orchestrated, all of this.
Dia, God. So India, India, in God, there's that. And it's the feminine
Oh,
version.
it's like Abraham. Well, the Ab, again in Gaelic, is father. Ra represents son, and Ham would. I'm going to take that it comes from Haim, which is home as in the heart. So it's basically father, mother, son, the Trinity in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all Indians, really. It's like the system gave us all these labels. I don't identify with any of them really. Then that way I've got nothing I feel I need to defend. And a lot of them don't really want to identify with, say, English. I don't want to identify with Christian or anything that seems to have a track record in murder. I don't want to be associated.
Well, we don't want to be associated, but at that same time, when it comes down to it, because we inhabited these bodies over again, we've been here before. It's that aspect of ourselves that we would deny that even exists, and that's the problem with. I know the challenge for most that when you're doing this work, and I know you can ascribe to this, but essentially, it's a challenge to see the dark of yourself, to think that you
Yeah.
of the same heinous crimes that you see happening in the world around you. But that is what needs to be healed, is acknowledging people hurt people. The heinous things you see happening are because of the heinous things that have happened. And it might have been you who created that when that created that whole cycle, that legacy. And so at some point, when we all acknowledge darkness within ourselves, that is the detoxing that's going on. So a beautiful write-up. I'll throw it up on my, as one of my memes. Basically, and what's coming up is what buried hidden beneath the surface. It's the suppression of all of our pain. It's all of our traumas being shown at us full force. If you haven't, you're gonna see it. Because what is being presented that triggers you, that gets your attention, is your work to do. Whatever it is that you gravitate and see and that you harp on as being bad is something in you that needs to be healed, or you wouldn't still be seeing it. When you are healed, and we're all working on it, to be fully healed means you're not triggered by things anymore, that you see it neutrally. You see it as it is. Oh, wow. Past, I would have responded to that or reacted in a harsh way. Now, compassion for myself, I experience that. Compassion for those who are experiencing. So everything in this world is an opportunity to see where you are in your journey. Okay, I'm seeing the stage is going through some really. That's how energy transmutes and alchemizes. This is an alchemizing opportunity. This is the catalyst. This is a catalyst for a lot of people to wake up to alchemize their situations into the gold. Turning the lead, the heavy weight of the government, transmuting that energy and transforming it into gold, coming from the really stagnant heaviness of the dark. The dark only feels heavy because we haven't acknowledged it. it lightens up when you illuminate it, which, by the way, today is Monday, Lunady. So it's funny that we're having these illuminating conversations. That's essentially where human collective is going through. What I was in my meditation today, really self-worth is the collective wound. We have all with a deep pain and worthy and not feeling valued, not being unlearn that. And on so many levels in so many ways that for everybody it looks different. You know, say worthy, but that doesn't mean you're embodying the worthiness. And that's the real healing that's happening right now. And we just had this whole vision of we are just a bunch of idiosyncrasies, personalities, and identities. Like, that's what keeps us heavy. To lighten up is to let go of all of it. I'm a personal development. I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. You know, I do rebirthings and breath works and meditations, and I help people heal and see them their best, self. Or I'm an IT professional. I was in social media. I did this, and I had a dog, and like all this stuff is just what down. I am a human. I am a soul inhabiting a human flesh suit for a short amount of time. I'm here to have experience. It could be that simple. I know a lot of people want more. They think they need to know more, but more is actually less more. And so these ideas that I have to prove myself, I have to do something, I have to have a legacy, I have to have, I have to do you just being you authentically is really the clue. But we've been conditioned to think we have to produce. And if we're not productive, then we're not worthy. And the cycle continues. Cycles continue. Very empowering. And that is the key. Once we recognize and embody our self-worth, they got nothing else. That's why the more of us, that's what I do. Know the potential human, spirit, the soul. That is what we're here for. And it's all in your breath. It's all in your body, mind, soul. I mean, like, if you really want to see them doing the dance of like, oh, just embody. Embodiment is the key. It's really what's going to yours. Never know. Maybe they go poof, gone. We don't know.
I thought I sort of saw the comments. They sort of flash up on the screen, but they disappear out again. I thought Mies had written Abbott, and I thought, oh, you're reading my mind. But again, the term Aboriginal we're told it's an insulting term, but if Ab means father, that means you're the original of a father, as it called, the father principle. So it's like I can accept or not accept the term. It's like I'm not going to put any judgment on it really, because again, it's labels. that,
And they've changed a lot of words to be negative connotating versus the original. I mean, I can use a great example. What is it? The word cunt. When someone says the word cunt, it cringes, right? But the way that they put the connotation as being negative, but in reality, it's actually endearment. It's actually putting a person up on a pedestal. Like,
yeah, it's very very well thought out. This the complexity of it. So to my mind, that can't be anything but the left hand of God, as it were, because it's it's devoid of the actual creative spark, but it's the highest intelligence because of how complex it would appear to be. But despite being so complex, can still see through it, and it's getting easier and easier to see through it. And it's got to the point where it doesn't really have any power because it relies on my reacting and responding to it, feeding into it, and it's like, not anymore. Yes, I will look at things, but I will choose. But I'm also, it's that discernment because some things just seem to land in your lap, and it's like this interactive thing because a lot of the things it's like YouTube recommendation, or it's if you watch people who watch this channel are also watching this, and or it can be a link that somebody or a channel somebody mentions, and there's a beautiful side to it. So I'm not going to dismiss. I'm going to be sort of open to it. Or again, Ken Wheeler says the worst thing you can do is have an open mind, but an open mind, but with a fiery angel guarding what's coming in. Gatekeeper is another one, but you've got to be your own gatekeeper. Who's going to do it for you? You've got to decide what's allowed to come in, and then if you take it in, you've got to digest that and process it as well. And it's like, do I feel like I will benefit from listening to this or watching this? Sometimes it's like, oh, I don't agree with what is suggested by the title, so now I need to watch it because I don't like something about the title. That must mean I'm feeling slightly triggered. That means I've got to ask myself, why am I triggered by that? What is it that's giving me this emotion is coming up with? I don't like that. I need to address what that is because by saying I don't like that, I'm making a judgment without even really thinking I'm making a judgment. I am making a judgment by saying that's bad. So,
well, and the design is to cause you to judge, because when you judge outside of yourself, you don't even realize you're judging with, because everything is shown yourself on the outside, the good, the bad, the ugly, beautiful. It's all, again, it's like three pointing back, past, present, and future. It's like, when have I been there? What am I there now? Like that's always an indicator, always a guide, and so it's there to trip us up, isn't it?
oh yeah, it's every board game you can ever think of, every computer game you can ever think of, every film, every book. It's the whole thing is just playing out every day. It's like I hadn't thought of it before, but you've got the father and son thing going on with Back to the Future and Terminator. You've also got like the resurrection in RoboCop is being expressed in a strange way. That's thanks to Yolanda on True Love Channel for pointing those ones out. And it's like, yeah, every film, if I see beyond the superficial, there's actually a really deep message in all these things. Nursery rhymes, the whole lot. And Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Well, we are that fractalized crystal that's reflecting each other that sort of fell apart, and we've got to put ourselves back together first, and then we find our tribe in the process. I feel it. We're the sort of branches of the tree, and it's recognizing where the trunk of the tree is, which is between all of us. It's a metaphorical tree. Don't go looking for a physical tree.
Dumpty was an egg. There's that egg symbolism.
Sorry?
The egg symbolism with Humpty Dumpty, right?
Yeah, cosmic egg, really. Another good one that came to me was the film Con Air.
Oh yes.
You've got he's got an Italian name, the actor. He's the one all these big macho criminals are actually the most scared of. He's the little guy who sits at the back of the plane as it's coming in and it's sort of having to do a forced landing. He's not actually worried. He's sitting there in the chair just singing, I got the whole world in my hands, because he has no fear. Okay, it's being presented, he's like a child murderer or whatever, and he's a vile character. But that is also giving a message that have no fear and you'll be perfectly fine. His is from having no empathy, but you can still have that power of, and like Jason says, it's about being fearless. Less fear. It's like let go of it all. That's the thing to really let go of is the fear of the what ifs. What if this happened? What if that happens? What if I do this today? What if I do that? Ooh. And the mind's going to love. Going to go on that's going to have a field day. Oh, it's problems to solve again.
Well, we're all planting seeds. What you're exposing yourself to, if you're not mindful, who also feeds you. You know, what you consume consumes you. And so what you take in through your five senses. And when you're watching movies, that's where we go back to. It's not predictive programming, it's planting seeds for you to manifest it. Everything. And I'm hearing more people talk about this, which I really appreciate because I have always felt like something a little off. And I have not watched a lot of movies as a result for a while. I mean, I watched Avatar's, the newer movie was the last movie I watched. But movies, people think, oh, all this movie, watch this because the like, do I? It's like the Bible. It's like the idea that so all this and revealings and such that it's all doom and gloom, and you never stop to think that you're part of the process, part of the problem. The solution is to not let that program you, because then you create. And so I even being a Catholic, when the stories, I'm like, no, don't talk about that stuff because you know what I mean. Even Nostradamus predictions, it's like, once again, you never stop to think that these were seeds planted for you because we're natural seekers as humans. So of course we're going to look for it, but it was planted there for us to find it. So it's really a matter of acknowledging what's original versus what has been implanted, what has been um, infiltrated. Again, the in, right? All that in, because in the end, from within, that's where you need to be to recognize what is. Yeah, we're water because water has the memory, water has the programming. The programming in the womb of the mother is a liquid water, right? To me, the looking back at baptism now, it was to try to birth you into their system. So we're all indoctrinated into some form of versus an actual like natural. And what has felt right. I mean, we all kind of been knowing something right ever since I was a little girl. Even going to Catholic school and doing the religion classes, I was the kid going, but even in the Bible, it says God says, don't worship me in four walls. So I'm out in nature. I'm worshiping God in nature and all the and everything else, which is innate in me. So I know it from the gnosis. I'm not, nobody's telling me to do this. I'm just feeling that's right. That's right for me. And I got nuns telling me, well, don't question it. It's just the way it is. And that's what you're supposed to do. And you need to go to church and, you know, you will be a, a product of the system. The thing right now is people who are waking up to that. But something in you has to tell you, I've always felt like something was right. Like how many people come to an event? I always felt like something was actual wake up, the transition in your life. It usually comes with that statement.
Yeah. I was thinking as well, it sort of prompted me from what you were saying earlier. A lot of people will say, oh, I struggle to meditate. Well, there's another form, a very easy way to meditate, and it's not about what you're going to come out with. So, say it's using clay and making a pot. It doesn't matter whether it comes out perfect or not, depending on how you judge it. Because you can always reform it. But art is creativity. If you can immerse yourself into whatever you're creating, be it painting or modeling display or whatever. If you really go into that, that is like a form of meditation, and I would say, go as far almost to say, I guarantee you will get something come through, because this is something. One of the things with Julia and oh, I've forgotten the other lady's name, but they're talking about Tom Campbell and how he's recognised
Cheryl Bailey.
both.
Yeah.
Cheryl Bailey, that's it. The left brain and the right brains. The left brain is that, it's that logical. So if you find, and it comes down to knowing yourself, if you're more left-brained and more going down the logical route, which is probably goes with the conspiracy theories and the truth-seeking, rather than the right side, which is the arts and the meditation and the yoga and things like that, then come to it from that left brain approach, and go into, immerse yourself into creating something. Don't judge about, and don't say I can't paint or whatever. It's not about the painting. It's opening. You're losing yourself in the moment of creation. It's being like the child who's playing with maybe Lego bricks and things. They've built something and now they're playing with it. They're totally oblivious to the outside world. They're so immersed in their creation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many young children feel the cold? It's only when the parent says, go and put a coat on, you're going to get cold. But that child is so immersed in the play, they don't even feel the cold. It's another one of these fear things. Oh, you've got to be fearful of the cold. And it's a hard one to break, because I don't like being cold. But I do find sometimes I can override it. It's almost like I'm lifting the spirit out the body slightly, lifting it up, so it's slightly out the body, so the body's now on autopilot walking along, and there's no focus on, oh, my hands are cold, and you forget cold, and it gives you that extra boost. Even with manifesting and things, call in reinforcements. If you've got a tarot card reader that you know and trust, and what from the readings it resonates, or astrology, and it's good readings, pull that into your manifestation. That's reinforcements. You're getting it coming from an outside source through the hearing sense. So you're programming yourself with that. So you're using the technology as well as using the internal. So that's using AI on side as well. The sky's the limit with this one. We are indestructible, unstoppable. It's yeah, this is turning out to be the ultimate computer game. It's like, can't wait to get back to the spaceship and tell you all what I've been doing, as it were. But even regardless of whether that's true or not, it's the feeling about this reality, and feeling is what is going to change the chemicals in the body, the adrenaline and the cortisone and serotonin levels. And I mean, these are amazing things, really. You go to sleep at night, they just go on this autopilot. The heart does what it's meant to do, the liver does what it's meant to do, and you don't have to consciously think about any of it. It just does it. It's brilliant. It's just being. But it's that
virus, because it's experiential, but yet this whole, the mind trying to capture, well, wait a minute, it has to have meaning, it has to da 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 da, when it's just an experience. And that's where the split is putting the labels on things, this or that, and then it's like, but again, the meditation, as you just stated, it's single-minded focus. You can meditate on Lego, you can meditate on art, on being out in nature. You don't have to sit on a mat to meditate. The meditation doesn't mean your mind stays still either. It just means it stays focused. And so, yeah, maybe thoughts drop in, whatever you're doing. And that's just to catch your attention, and maybe you let them drift out, or maybe there's more to that thought that does drop in, and it's meant to like take you into a reflective moment. So meditation is not to still your mind to the point where "Oh, it's all bliss because I'm not thinking anything." Nah, I don't think so. It is it is an opportunity to receive. Prayer is asking, meditation is receiving.
There's also this whole thing about the duality. There is a duality in it because you need to be aware that you are not the physical body, although you are in it. You, that is not you. All the things, I do this, I earn this much, I work here and live there. That's all the false persona. That's the real person. A person just comes from Latin. It means persona. It's a mask. So you're a real mask, are you?
Well,
and
it's
it,
make the unconscious what's running the program. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like realizing that you need the physical body to operate in the physical reality, but it is only a vehicle, although it is part of you. So there is a duality even in that. It's like you're one, but you're also within that one. There's a physical aspect and there's a metaphysical aspect to it as well. So, but I do feel it needs definitely needs developing this sort of left brain path into finding yourself. That, that those that are lean that sort of side are not going to be able to transition so easy to the spiritual. So there needs to be another route. So it's whether they take that leap because it is a 1, 2, 3 step process. It's like being open to the idea of the possibilities, then the concept of it, and then just taking that leap. And it's like I've got the concept, but only one way I'm going to know now, and that's to like leap off through that metaphysical cliff or step through that doorway. But
Mm.
but I would say from my own experience, when one door closes, another door definitely opens. It's like lose the fear of this, and it's amazing what then it's like. Oh, I didn't see that before. No, because my mind was on the negative polarity, but now it's more into balance, and it's like, oh wow, this is actually good. It's like I live in an urban setting, but when I walk into town, I'm pretty lucky, as it were, because I've got a nearly the whole way is tree lines,
Mm.
and the feel of spring. The birds are singing. I saw a blackbird today, and it's like almost like a communication of, yeah, spring's here as well, and
Mm.
oh, this wonderful, glad you've come back because I think they migrate, and it's not obviously a vocal, but it's like all in the mind. Whether the birds, well, I feel they do. They pick up on our feeling in our aura. They probably see the light around us and what colours we're displaying anyway. Certainly, dogs and cats know good people from bad people by the energy. That's for definite. So it's it is it's turning out to be, yeah, it did look horrible, but wow, it is just a game, and I've unlocked a way inside myself to now navigate my way through it and not be affected by it in the same way. But I can affect the world by saying, well, here's a different perspective. Try it this way. And the beauty of it is I know I'm not doing it. You're doing it, and there's countless others, all different, slightly different angles and perspectives and things because you've but the whole picture overall, and it's like with the channels I look at, I'm looking for the common ground across them all, not the differences. I'm not focusing on where they disagree. I'm focusing on where they agree because
Mm.
they're all building to this picture of and an understanding of, well, where did it go wrong before, so we don't make the same mistake again, hopefully. But there again, was it a mistake? It's been a whole process to just taken experience away from, really, ultimately, I feel. That's all that we're here for. This is our version of the data collector. We're collecting data in terms of feelings and experiences, not
Mm.
sort of tangible. Because that's the other thing, this operant power that works with this manifestation from imagination creates reality. I have seen it in action, but I can't point to anything in physical and say, there it is. But it's the time has got two aspects to it. There's the beauty in the timing. That's the thing to see, not sort of, oh, it's 11 o'clock or it's 12 o'clock. I've got to be here in half an hour. But wow, look how that's happened. It's like I put out that thing and then I can now use time in under 24 hours. It's come back like a boomerang and it's like, wow, that's just what I needed.
Mhm.
And it's like, wow, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And there's this sort of wavelength and it's like almost not still a long way off, but it's early signs of replacing the internet with telepathy again. Because this technology, it's again come from a side that can't create, so they must have based it on something else. Certainly, the devices do the same as the human body. At the moment of death, there's a process. The body just doesn't stop. The heart may stop operating, but the body goes through a shutdown sequence, same as a phone or a computer. If you do a reset, the screen goes black, there appears to be nothing happening. It's all happening internally, and then it comes back to life. It's all based on that whole lot in one form or another.
For
So
sure.
yeah, I'm happy.
Mhm.
This thing that are changing. I put the wishes out there. I've left it to the universe to sort it out because I can't. My conscious mind can't figure it out, and I admit that I can't figure it out. And it'd just be problem solving. It's going to be such a waste of energy, but I can just put the thought out there, put the request slip out into the universe, and don't worry about the time. It'll happen when it happens. And it so far so good. It's what I can report back to this one. we oh 2 hours 22 minutes 11 seconds. Wow.
Pretty impressive. It felt like it just flew by for sure.
This is always the way, but I just could I thought of all the times to look and it was 222. It's like, well, that says something in
Yeah.
itself. So
Well, it's a good point to start off so that you can enjoy your curry.
yeah, I've got to go down and get that.
Yeah.
It
Thank
was it was more a case earlier on of I'm the master of this body. And actually, the bladder is. The coffee had to be processed, as it were. But yeah, it's well, it's tin, so I'll probably hold that over for another day. I'll see what else. Well, I'll just eat what I fancy eating, really, and I'll listen to what the body says to go for. That's the easiest way. Take the thinking out of the equation. Do the unthinkable.
Exactly. I love that. The irony of do the unthinkable.
Well, this is the message. Doesn't matter whether the devil's in the detail. It doesn't matter about whether the Anunnaki were real and how when they were. But the
Mm.
message is Enki did the unthinkable. The empowerment key is to do the unthinkable. So that's taking that middle path and not the conscious thoughts. It's being the observer where that takes you
Hmm.
and just sitting with it, as it were. And it's like, where we go? Where are we going today? Okay, you drive and let's see where we go and let's see what comes out of it. Rather than fighting against yourself, because it's like I've got to meditate, I've got to switch my mind off. I can't think about anything. That's never going to work like that because you're thinking about not thinking. That's a weird duality.
Well, thank you,
Yeah,
James. This has been, as always, a pleasure. And I'm sure we'll do this again.
it's exciting. It's like I wanted to do this with like interaction with different channels because one, it spreads it out the message out,
Mhm.
safety in numbers, eggs in one basket, And also, it's nice to have this human interaction that you don't get when you're just talking to a device. You get the interaction through the comments, but it's not the same. So, okay, thank you very much, and love to all the chat room. And if you're still listening, thank you for listening.
Mwah. Next next video.
Okay.